Hello, everyone. I'm Donna Terrell for Arkansas Week. An Arctic blast is expected to pass through the state this weekend, bringing frigid temperatures along with a wintry mix of sleet, snow, and ice across the region. We'll provide you with an update on the projected forecast and being prepared. But first, tax season is upon us, and there are some important changes that you need to be aware of before you file your 2025 tax returns. Joining me to explain them are Joyia Yorgey, Executive Director of the nonprofit Arkansas Asset Builders, and Ernest, Tax Analyst, Public Service Fellow, and for Legal Aid of Arkansas. And I certainly want to thank both of you for being with us. You know, a lot of stuff that people need to be aware of. And I know the passage of the One Big Beautiful Bill Act by Congress last year has brought some real important changes that people need to be aware of. And I think one of the things that stand out for the vast majority of people, or at least those who are receiving these types of earnings, tips and overtime.
Yep.
So the government is eliminating taxes on that.
Yes, that is true to some degree for some people. And I think one of the things taxpayers will need to watch out for when they file is, do they end up meeting all of the requirements to take those various deductions?
So let's talk
on their
about the
bills.
requirements, because, you know, I would think it's across the board. Obviously, that's not the case. So let's start with tips. What are the requirements?
Sure. So taxpayers have to work in one of a specific list of occupations that are normally tipped occupations. Like servers, hairdressers, drivers, that kind of thing, hotel hospitality workers.
Okay, so, you know, a lot of people, and let's just be real here, and RG, I'll bring you into the conversation also. Unless, and I know this is cheating, but unless the tip is on a credit card, if it's cash, a lot of people don't always report it anyway, right? So we're really just talking about tips that go through a credit card that someone would have to report. So usually I would think those tips would qualify across the board maybe. Am I wrong? RG, I'll let you chime in.
Well, I think definitely if you're talking about tip reporting, if like Joyia said, it has to be the correct type of industry and actually needs to be a tip. But once it is shown on income, then you get a deduction for that tip that is reported. You are correct to say that in the past, many people have not necessarily reported their tip income, even though they usually should. But a lot of times when tips are paid in cash, they don't wind up getting reported anyway.
Okay.
But they're supposed to.
Right. I don't want to spend too much time on this because I have to get through a number of other questions that I have for you. But we're also talking about overtime. Personally, I work in an environment where there are people who get overtime. You know, we were talking about this because on MLK Day, for example, some hourly employees were working and they got double pay. And, you know, and then if they had to work longer, they got even more money. So we're talking about when you get overtime funds, you're not taxed on that.
You're not taxed on the extra that you get paid that's above your normal hourly rate.
Okay.
So you still have to pay the normal taxes on the hours that you work, no matter how many hours that you work.
Okay.
But that extra, whether that's, you know, the half that on time and a half or an extra double on double time, that extra bonus you get is what you could potentially deduct.
It makes me wish I was hourly now. But this is only going to last, RG, for how long? This is not something that's indefinite for people, and they need to be aware of that, correct?
Yeah, I think that's right. I can't remember exactly how many years that this is for, but it is a temporary benefit that is being offered to taxpayers.
Okay. Do you remember how long it is?
These provisions are in play for now for tax years 2025 through 2028.
Okay.
And they'll have to be readdressed.
25 through 28. Okay, so take advantage of it now. Let's talk about some deductions for seniors. This is actually pretty cool as I was looking at it. Things are changing for them in terms of the standard deduction. It's higher for starters.
So that's an annual change. The standard deductions increase a little bit every year because they are indexed to inflation. But what came into play this year is an extra, they call it an enhanced deduction, that's separate from the standard deductions that most every taxpayer with some income limits over age 65 will be able to receive that benefit.
And RG, I'm looking here, it says that this is available for both itemizing and non-itemizing taxpayers. What does that mean?
Right. So many taxpayers, probably most taxpayers today, especially people who are 65 or older, they're going to take the standard deduction, but you can also, for certain taxpayers, they're still going to itemize. So instead of doing the standard, they might have enough expenses like, say, interest expense, property taxes, things like that, that would cause them to itemize and take more than what the standard allows. And even if they itemize, they're still going to get that extra $6,000 of senior deduction. So
Okay.
it's very beneficial. You get it whether you itemize or take the standard.
That's good to know. And just for the record, you would have had to turn 65 by December 31st, 2025?
Actually, by January 1st, 2026.
Okay, so an extra day.
An extra day.
If you were a New Year's baby, lucky you, right? Okay.
And if I could clarify one other thing here, this has been talked about as no tax on Social Security, but in the way that it has been implemented, it will be available to people that meet the other age requirements regardless of whether they draw Social Security. So someone who maybe is still working
And not drawing
and
Social
is 66,
Security.
67, they would still qualify, or someone who draws retirement from other sources and not Social Security would also qualify.
Good to know. An increase in itemized deductions for state and local taxes. What does that mean for folks? Now we're moving away from seniors and we're talking about pretty much everyone, right?
Yeah.
So
I'll
yeah.
kick that one to RG.
RG, did you hear the question?
I'm not that familiar with that change in the there were a number of changes in the big beautiful bill, but that is one that we, in our particular tax clinic, we haven't put a lot of focus into because of the nature of the taxpayers that we serve. They
Okay.
tend to be low income taxpayers, and so that particular issue is usually not going to come up for them.
Okay. There are some energy efficient deductions and credits that are now being eliminated or capped. RG?
Yeah, that is correct. There are a lot of these tax credits that were offered for things like energy efficient efforts. Those are ending, I believe, for this 2025 tax year. Joyia, you might have something to add to that as well.
Sure. I mean, the one-liner, I guess, is that if you haven't already made those improvements, it's too late.
It's too late.
You had to have finished them by the end of 2025 to be able to claim any kind of a tax deduction.
Does that have anything to do with electric vehicles as well? Or is that something totally separate?
So that provision was also eliminated, but what we're talking about is those home energy
Improvements,
efficiency,
yeah.
the windows, doors, insulation, things
Yeah.
that a lot of people would do.
Okay. The 1099K and 1099DA forms, I'm thinking that refers to people who are like contractors, who, folks who work under contract. Is that right? And what exactly is happening for them?
I'll talk about those separately. So the 1099-K is a form that is issued by payment processors. So that could be anyone that accepts credit card payments for a small business or hobby or anything that they do. They could potentially receive a 1099-K from their point of sale system or payment processing system. It also could apply to people who receive a lot of money over Venmo, Cash App,
Oh my goodness, okay.
PayPal, those kinds of
Wow.
things. So the last couple of years, the government was signaling that a lot more people would have to receive this form, but that has been rolled back. So possibly fewer people will get that form in 2025, for 2025. But the thing to know is that that income might still need to be reported on your tax return regardless of whether you receive a form.
This almost sounds complicated to me. I guess it really depends. Hopefully people have someone that's helping them that can really walk them through all of this. And that really takes me to my next question, because unfortunately, we're running out of time and I'm not even getting to all of my questions. But RG, could you explain what Legal Aid of Arkansas does to help people?
Right. Well, in general, Legal Aid of Arkansas is a nonprofit law firm that serves the legal needs of just underserved Arkansans. We provide a number of different legal services. One of those is through the Low Income Taxpayer Clinic, which is what I am a part of. And so we provide tax services for taxpayers who are running into problems. A lot of these happen after the tax return is filed, and that is the reason why these conversations that we're having today are so important, because it causes people to tend to file tax returns, do them on time, do them correctly by connecting with organizations like Arkansas Asset Builders.
Okay, and that's so vital. And let's talk about Arkansas Asset Builders, Joyia. I know you not only help low income, but moderate income as well. So what is it that you're doing throughout the year to help people?
Yeah, so we have three main ways that taxpayers can get help through our tax assistance programs. One way is to come to one of our locations in person. We have locations in Conway, Little Rock, and Searcy. And if you come in person, you will get help from a trained volunteer who will prepare your tax return for you. And that service is available for most taxpayers up to $69,000 of income. Then we can also connect taxpayers across the state with remote volunteers through a website called getyourrefund.org. We have volunteers who provide that same service of actually doing the tax return for you, but it's not limited to getting to a particular location at a particular time.
Okay. When does tax season start and when does it end?
So IRS filing season opens this coming Monday.
Wow.
That means that IRS will start processing tax returns. So if you have your favorite tax service that you've already started your return, maybe you finished it already, but if you have, it's just sitting there being held until the IRS opens those processing doors.
And I want to thank both of you for joining us. Thank you. There's a lot of information to get through, and you probably have more questions. You can get those answers at irs.gov, irs.gov. It's just that easy. When we come back, we're going to talk about this major winter weather blast that's headed our way. Stay with us. Snow accumulations from 4 to as much as 12 inches are anticipated throughout the weekend, as well as sleet and that freezing rain in various parts of the state, creating hazardous conditions. Here to keep us informed on the latest weather projections and get us prepared for all of this and staying safe are Dennis Cavanaugh, Warning Coordination Meteorologist with the National Weather Service, and A.J. Geary, Director of the Arkansas Division of Emergency Management. Thank you so much for being here to talk about this. This is on the minds of all of us, every single one of us, from the little kids who want to know if I can get out there and play, to the adults, those of us who have to drive in it, and folks who are going to stock up on everything they need to get them through this weather event. So, Dennis, I'm going to start with you. Tell us about this Arctic blast that's sweeping across the United States and how Arkansas fits in.
Sure. So, Arkansas traditionally sits in that transition zone where we can get all the different types of winter weather. And that looks like what's happening right now. This is a huge storm system that extends from the southern plains all the way to the Atlantic coast. Arkansas is sitting in that transition zone where the rain is changing to ice in southern Arkansas, sleet probably central, and then all snow north of that. And there's going to be quite a bit of it. So it's going to be a high impact winter storm for the state of Arkansas. My
goodness. So everybody's going to be affected one way or the other, whether it's straight snow or whether it's, snow and ice, sleet, as
Absolutely.
we refer to it, will all be affected. Dennis, one more thing with you. As we tape on a Thursday, because I do want our viewers to know, today is Thursday that we're taping, and this one runs on Friday. So, Friday, when can we expect the storm to hit?
Sure. So what I think is going to happen on Friday is you could see some very light wintry precipitation in the morning, but we're not going to see enough wintry precipitation for impacts until Friday afternoon, and that's going to really start in the western part of the state early Friday afternoon. That's going to spread east throughout the day. So by the late afternoon or early evening hours, those impacts will be spreading towards central Arkansas, and then eastern Arkansas is going to be much later in the evening, so maybe 8 to 10 p.m. before you get into the far eastern part of the state. That's just when the impacts start, though. The heaviest precipitation, it looks like it's going to fall Saturday night, just after midnight, or Friday night, just after midnight on Saturday, leading throughout Saturday morning. That's when the heaviest precipitation is going to fall, but that is going to continue at least on and off throughout the day on Saturday into Sunday morning before the whole storm system actually stops.
Okay, my goodness, wow, a major impact here. AJ, what should be on the checklist as we prepare, as those of us who are out here trying to prepare for this storm?
Sure. So, for Arkansas Division of Emergency Management, we work close with the National Weather Service. So we start a couple of days before a weather event moves in, doing coordination calls, making sure everybody's kind of up to speed, all of our state agencies and that. We work close with RDOT. For individuals, the good thing, I guess, if there is a good thing, is this storm's going over the weekend. So it's a great opportunity, for our citizens, get what you need before the weekend, plan on staying in, try to stay off the roads. It could be snow, could be sleet, could be ice, but travel could be very dangerous in some areas.
Okay.
So, the other thing RDOT has a great app, iDrive Arkansas. So if by some chance they have to get out, they can check the road conditions and tell what the roads are going to be like.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because it's so easy to go online and to look at that, because it differentiates us between where there's snow, where there's ice, where it might be cleared, and that is, even with RDOT, when they have cleared a road, you will know if you can drive in it. But bottom line, and we tell people this all the time, just don't drive in it. Stay home, get everything that you need, and just stay home and, I guess, enjoy it, Bundle up, spend time with family, read a book. Let the kids go outside and play in the snow because they want to. But I did want to ask you this, because from what I understand, those temperatures are going to get dangerously cold.
Yeah, and so that's the other part of this system. Once the precipitation stops, especially here in central Arkansas, where I think we're going to mainly get sleet, the temperatures are going to plummet. So Sunday night into Monday morning, we're talking about starting the day Monday morning out in the single digits across the entire state of Arkansas, if not colder. Some areas might be below zero. And outside of just being brutally cold, and folks in Arkansas aren't used to that level of coldness, Whatever's on the ground, it will freeze 100% solid ice. You just, this sleet, however it, sleet or snow, whatever, when the temperatures get that cold, it's gonna freeze solid. So whatever's not moved off of a road, it's gonna be there on Monday. It's gonna be tough.
So, okay, and we get that. We understand that. How long do you think we're going to be basically, and I'm going to use the word snowed in or frozen in? How long is that going to last? Because that can shut cities down for a very long time.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, temperatures are going to stay below freezing all the way until Wednesday. But we will see full sunshine on Monday, even though the temperatures are only going to get up to the mid-20s. That full sunshine by itself will be enough to start the melting process, especially any treated roads. Those will start to melt on Monday despite the temperature staying well below freezing. And it's just the ground absorbing directly that solar energy that's going to cause the melting. But the roads are still, unless the road has been treated by RDOT, it's going to remain bad. So RDOT's going to keep most of the main highways clear. I'm pretty confident in that. But
in the
I'm
city,
talking about the city
it's
roads.
a different story.
It's
a totally different story. AJ, so now as we talk about this and ice and all of that, power outages.
Right.
I only sigh because that's the worst. When it's cold, you lose power, now you've lost heat, all of this stuff. How do we deal with that? And I would think, hospitals and, we're talking a broad range of power outages, at least the potential for that.
Yeah, very, very possible, especially with more of the freezing rain, the ice, and that brings the power lines down. So again, when we say, this is going to be over the weekend, people need to prepare that they could be out of electricity for a few days.
So how do you prepare for that?
Make sure you have the stuff you need. You have the food, the water that you need. Make sure that you have, batteries for your flashlight. Really want to caution people, make sure they have their smoke detectors or carbon monoxide detectors are workable and are working, and to be very careful if they use any other type of heating source. In other words, you don't want to be bringing in propane tank and burners and running them, so just be very, very careful if they're trying to use any other type of alternative heating source. But, it may be one of those things where you bundle up and you stay inside.
This being a major weather event, how is ADAM, Arkansas Division of Emergency Management, how is ADAM helping other entities to prepare to protect Arkansans?
Right. So, we start preparing early for this. We look at, we're used to doing this. It's we have storm systems, whether it's tornado or winter events. So we're preparing for that. We'll do coordination calls, 2 or 3 days before the event and every day through the event. With all of our emergency managers around the state, with all of our state agencies. So Arkansas Department of Transportation is a big partner on this. National Weather Service will brief us out on what's coming, what to be ready for. We'll have additional, Arkansas State Troopers will be out. We also have National Guard, what we call truck teams. They will be out with the different troops around the state, so that if we do have some motorists stranded, we can help with that. We can also help ambulances maybe get to certain areas. So it's really coordinating all of the assets, all of the resources we have in the state, and getting that out. And if we have an impact, we have down trees, we have down power lines, and then there may be some recovery stuff that we'll go into after the disaster or after the storm passes.
One of the things I've always thought about, and my husband and I, we don't live very far from a hospital. So, places like hospitals, and I'm thinking you have knowledge on this, do they get first dibs, if you will, when it comes to, bringing back the power? I mean, that's a place that definitely, I know they have generators.
Sure.
that help them through, but, a generator can only last for so long, and I've seen power outages go on for some people for at least a couple weeks, maybe even longer. It just kind of depends. So who who's targeted first by Entergy and other services like that?
So we, our hospitals and that, they're supposed to have generators and so forth. We have before helped get fuel to some of those generators if they need to. But yes, we know where our critical infrastructure is, so we will communicate with Entergy. And of course, Entergy is very much aware. I mean, they do a great job working, setting things in motion before the storm comes so that they can have crews ready to go. And so they're monitoring that. They know where the critical infrastructure is, and they're going to be looking at those life safety things to make sure that those are up and running.
Okay. Well, like the saying goes, we're in this together and we'll get through it, right? I mean, you feel pretty confident about that part. It's just a matter of getting through it and people staying safe. So I want to thank both of you for being on. I know your job is only just beginning, at least with this part of it. So I wish you the very best in terms of all that you have to do in the days ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having us. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, and hopefully our Kansans will know what to do like we always do. We pull together, we figure out a way to get through it, and we will. This too shall pass, as the saying goes. And I want to thank you for joining me for Arkansas Week. You stay safe out there and try to stay warm, and I'll see you next time.